It's 15 GMT, that's just past 5 p.m. in Gaza, where Israel's assault on the Strip is intensifying and killing even more Palestinians. The Israeli military has targeted the Jabalia refugee camp for a second day. Several homes were destroyed, killing dozens of people. More are buried under the rubble. In the past 24 hours, at least 700 Palestinians have been killed. It's one of the highest daily death tolls since the war began, and it's expected to rise. In Gaza City, there have been street-to-street gun battles between Israeli forces and Hamas fighters. Members of Gaza's civil defense team are desperately working to move the most vulnerable civilians away from the fighting. For those who do manage to flee, safety is nearly impossible to find. Israel has struck one of the two main roads linking northern Gaza with the south. Several Palestinians were injured as they were traveling on Salah ad-Din Road. And in the south, families have been saying their final goodbyes. That's in Khan Younis. They are carrying the latest victims of the shelling on their shoulders and laying them to rest. More than 15,500 people have been killed in Gaza since October the 7th. Asad Beg begins our coverage.
Children are meant to play in the dirt. But in Gaza, it's their shroud. The bombing has continued in areas that the Israeli military said were safe.
I was asleep. I woke up. I found myself under the rubble. I didn't find anything. All around me was logs and rocks. I tried to move, but I couldn't because there were a lot of rocks. I kept screaming and calling for the people. Men came and carried me. They put me in the ambulance.
And more strikes on the Jabalia refugee camp. Reports of dozens killed. My father and brother are dead, he says. There is no respite for Palestinians here. Civil defense teams frantically traverse narrow streets of Khan Younis in the south. Palestinians' homes and lives continue to be ripped apart. Many have already moved from the north to the south, making these areas even more densely populated than before.
When the civil defense teams came, they were confronted by an unimaginable scene, a residential area consisting of more than 50 houses, as per the testimonies of the civilians and residents, stating that this square was highly populated by residents and internally displaced people. It was targeted by more than 10 bombs launched by Israeli occupation forces. We're talking here about hundreds killed.
Hamas's Al-Qassam brigade fighters released video which appears to show them taking on the Israeli army in Beit Hanun in the northern Gaza Strip. Israel says it wants to destroy Hamas, but fighters continue to resist its military advance. The 6-day ceasefire, which ended on Friday, gave people a few days of calm. Now there's more bloodshed. Fewer hospitals operating, fewer emergency vehicles, and if this rate of killing continues, fewer Palestinians left in the Gaza Strip. Asad Beg, Al Jazeera.
Let's go live to our correspondent Tareq Abu Azzoum. He's in Khan Younis in southern Gaza. And Tareq, Khan Younis, the Israelis have said, is now a war zone, but their attacks are continuing across the Strip with devastating consequences.
Yes, as we have mentioned earlier, that the concentration after the end of the last truce between Hamas and Israel on the ground had been directed towards Khan Younis city and the south of the Gaza Strip, where it had been under relentless Israeli strikes during the last couple of days. And in particular, these kinds of air raids intensify at night against several residential areas and even agricultural lands in the eastern areas of Khan Younis city, where also the coastal line of the city had been attacked widely by the Israeli naval warships. The residents inside the city of Khan Younis are really terrified, as they have been informed and they received different leaflets that had been dropped by the Israeli occupation air forces informing them to flee to Rafah district in order to be away from the Israeli bombardment, as they are turning the Khan Younis city into a war zone area that will have further kind of expansion of their military operation. operations on the ground. So the situation right now is very catastrophic and very difficult, as the number of people who had been evacuating to the hospital right now had been doubled, and also the people who have been now get back in order to flee to Rafah has been increased during the last couple of hours due to the relentless strikes that struck the city earlier today.
Tareq, the Israelis are saying that they're focusing on Khan Younis because Hamas is operating from there. But hundreds of thousands of people, we believe, have fled the fighting in the north since October the 7th and are in Khan Younis. Do we have an idea of how many people are there?
Well, personally, I believe that the situation for those people who started to flee to Rafah district is really inhuman. I was just coming to work earlier today, and I found a lot of people who are just moving using the coastal line that is linking between Khan Younis and Rafah. They are moving to Rafah city, and what is also very catastrophic is that they are now setting up camp tent in the middle of the streets in Rafah area, because the majority of houses in Rafah district had become full of evacuees who had been forcibly evicted from the houses from the north and central areas of Gaza, as they were also been told by people there that they have been informed to flee, and they are afraid to lose their family members and their beloved ones. And while the main result of these airstrikes is that more waves of evacuation are taking place, as I clearly saw people have being loaded their trucks with their furniture, their stuff, their items, preparing themselves to flee to Rafah district, which in fact exacerbates the situation on the ground in the south of the Gaza Strip.
Tareq, thank you very much for that. That is Tareq Abu Azzoum with the latest live in Khan Younis in southern Gaza.